Hey everyone, it's Turk 13 and I'm back with another episode of Street Fighter Friday. And this week, as you can see, we're going to do something a little bit different. A good old tier maker video, a good old tier list vid. Um, I kind of like watching these once in a while, seeing what people's opinions are of, whatever it is we're talking about. But figured I'd give it a shot, just kind of keep things fresh, keep things interesting, and kind of just talk about Street Fighter, talk about, what I like about the series, the games I like, the games I don't like, etc., etc. I just think it would be just something cool. So, we have our 5 tier list system here. I like these because it gives you that nice little middle right here, like the creamy center, so that we have our average, our below average, and our above average. And the cute thing to do these days, I guess, is to instead of A, B, C, D, F, you put something cool in the as your tier name. So mine are all from Street Fighter. They're all uh, post match quotes from the games. See if you can guess which ones are which, or if you know what they are. Our top tier here, the best of the best. We have I'm the strongest fighting game in the world. Right after that, we have you must defeat Shenlong to stand a chance. Right in the middle, we have are you man enough to fight with me? Followed by don't forget there are many games like you all over the world. And finally, our bottom tier, go home and be a family game. So we have our list of Street Fighter games down here. Obviously, there was actually a couple that weren't on this tier maker that I added, and we'll get to those after a while once we kind of get into it. But I'm only going to rank ones that I've played. Obviously, I'm not going to do like an unplayed rank down here. Unplayed will just be the field here at the bottom. So let's see what we come up with here. So first and foremost, we have the original Street Fighter from 1987, the game that started it all. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put it straight into the go home and be a family game tier. Game's bad. Oh, it's bad. I've never seen it in person. Never seen the console, or, excuse me, the cabinet in person. So never seen it. Never played it on that. But I have played the game. It's included with the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection. I played it there and it's bad. Um, Apparently, the original cabinet actually used pressure sensitive buttons instead of like having the traditional 6 button system Street Fighter is known for, of light, medium, and hard, light, medium, heavy, whatever you want to say. There was one kick button, one punch button, and depending on how hard you pressed it, that dictated the strength of your attack. Um, I've heard wild stories about people like standing on the machine, stomping on the buttons, drop kicking it. I heard a story about one time a dude hit it with a cinder block. Don't know if any of that's true, but that's what I heard back in the old GameFAQs days. So it started the whole genre, not the whole genre. There was fighting games before that. I think I'm pretty sure. I don't fucking know, but this is what launched Street Fighter. But that doesn't mean it's a good game. Important, yes. Good, absolutely not. Second here we have Street Fighter 2010: The Final Fight, which was a NES exclusive. This is not a Street Fighter game. It says Street Fighter on it. The American localization tried really hard to connect it to Street Fighter. They changed the main guy's name to Ken and put in a little blurb at the beginning story that he retired from the Street Fighting circuit and went on to do all this crazy stuff. In the science field, it says Street Fighter. It's by Capcom. It's not a Street Fighter game. Like it's a Mega Man game, but basically it's Mega Man, but like with a different character. So I'm not gonna. I don't even count it. We're gonna put it to the back. Now here we go. We got the big dog next. Street Fighter 2: The World Warrior. This was the first version of Street Fighter 2, the first fighting game that let you pick your character. uh, the original 8 were introduced here, and the rest is, I mean, as they say, it's history. It has the 6 button system, has the special moves that we all know. The Street Fighter, the original Street Fighter 1 did have like the Hadoken is in there, the Shoryuken is in there, the Hurricane Kick is in there, but they're like impossible to do. I've tried. you can't do them. You can do them really easy in Street Fighter 2. Um, it is the end all be all really. So that being said, I'm actually just gonna put it right in here. You already man enough to fight with me. It is man enough to fight with me. This list is going to be more based off of my personal liking, my personal memories with these games. And Street Fighter 2, legendary game, but just not my Street Fighter 2. We're about to get to that. If that makes any sense at all. So I'm not trying to slight the game. I'm not trying to be an edgelord and say Street Fighter 2 is overrated or it did so much for video games as a whole. But it's not my favorite version of Street Fighter 2. Up next, we have the Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition. This was the first update to Street Fighter 2. It introduced the ability for players to mirror match. You can pick the same character. You couldn't do that in the original Street Fighter. And it also let you play as the boss characters, the four Heavenly Kings, and Bison, Sagat, Balrog, and Vega. Now, as early as I can remember, to my knowledge, this is the first Street Fighter game I ever played. My mother worked at a Big Lots. She was like a assistant manager at a Big Lots or an Odd Lots, and it could have been either one. They're the same company. But if anybody knows what those are, they're like a not like a thrift store, but like they're one of those stores that they buy stuff from other stores that they can't sell, and they put it in their store to sell. So, as you were to do back in the 90s, they had arcade games, not for sale, but to play. And to my knowledge, that is the first time that I can remember that I saw Street Fighter. Like, I played it. I put quarters in it. I remember the green Street Fighter 2 logo. I remember it heavily advertising that you could play as the boss characters, that you could be your match. I think it even shows. I think to advertise that like around the border of the monitor, they were like, "Here you can play Guile versus Guile, or whatever." But because this is really my introduction to Street Fighter, I have to put it up here. You must defeat Shenlong. Like I said, this is a very, very personal list. So you could make your argument that it's not as good as the original. You could make an argument about that about any of these games. But that is where. So let's see. What do we have next? We have Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting, which I believe that is the. Is that the Japanese version of Street Fighter 2 Turbo? It is. So that's Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting. Now, after the first update here with Champion Edition, with Hyper Fighting, what it does is that it's the same game, but it increases speed. Like that's it. Excuse me there, I had to take a drink. But that's all it is. It's the same exact game as Champion Edition. It's just faster. With that being said, like theoretically, yes, it should be up here with Champion Edition. It should be in the Shenlong tier. But I'm gonna go ahead and put it down here with Iron Man to fight with me. Next up here we have the new challengers. So this was a pretty big update for Street Fighter 2. This is the one that introduced Fei Long, Cammy, DJ, and T-Hawk. So it increased the roster and also gave us our second female character in Cammy. Other than that, I believe it's very similar to the originals. It does run on a better system. It runs on CP System 2. So it does have updated graphics. It does look a little bit better. Audio's a little bit better. But like it's not like it. I mean, it's a big update. Don't get me wrong. But with that, I'm actually gonna put it. I'm gonna have to put it right there. Like I don't think it's. Is it as good as Champion Edition? It's probably better. I mean, you could say it's better, but I think it did take away the turbo option, so it is a little bit slower. But then after that, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. So with this one, it's everything from Super Street Fighter 2, World Warriors, or excuse me, the new challengers. But it also lets you have selectable game speed, so you can play regular speed, Turbo 2, or Turbo 3. And then it also introduced the Super Combo system, which has been a staple of the series ever since. So actually, a very important game in the timeline. So with that, I am actually just because it's not like the what introduced us to Street Fighter. Obviously, that was Street Fighter One, but for what it introduced that we still have to this day, it's got to go up here. It did too much to be down here with these guys. Just adding the super combo system alone, something that every 2D fighting game after this has. Like, I mean, not like that. I mean, yeah, kind of. Um, Mortal Kombat 3 had the aggressor. I think it was from MK3 had the aggressor system, which was very similar to Super Combo. The Guilty Gear games, Blaze Blue, Street Fighter today. Now even with Mortal Kombat, it's a little bit different. Like you have like the fatal blows from the newer games, which are kind of like super combos. They work a little bit different though. But like King of Fighters, Garo, all those, oh, Fatal Fury, whatever you want to say, they all cop that same system. So up next we got Street Fighter Alpha Warrior's Dream. So not a sequel to Street Fighter 2, a prequel. Street Fighter Alpha that actually takes place before Street Fighter 2 and documents Ryu's victory in the first World Warrior tournament. I have not spent a lot of time with Street Fighter Alpha. I got to be totally honest. It is one that I'm not like a humongous fan of the Alpha games, but I don't dislike them either. But with Street Fighter Alpha, for me personally, I just didn't play it that much. It doesn't help that it gets superseded by like games later, which I'll talk about when we get there. But Alpha introduced a new super meter system and introduced new it uses a completely new graphics system, new graphics engine, whatever you would like to say. It looks like super anime, which was like different from Street Fighter 2. But with that being said, there are many games like it all over the world. Let me just say that. Up next, X-Men versus Street Fighter. This is not a game I really would have considered because it's in the Versus series, but very important game in that it is the first time that Marvel and Capcom worked together. And the first time that the Marvel universe and the Capcom universe exploded, went after each other. Very important game. Very cool game. Unfortunately, though, did not spend that much time with it. I just wasn't playing it back then. And also, unfortunately for me, my first real exposure to it was the PlayStation 1 port, which is not very good. Its frame rate is absolutely atrocious. That, along with Alpha 3, and I think Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter. But it does a lot for the series. It's something that if we didn't have this, we wouldn't have the later games. But because I didn't spend that much time with it, it is very cool. I am going to go ahead and put it up here. It is man enough to fight with me. It's just a really cool game. Next is Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter. This is kind of like the next stage. Instead of just X-Men characters, now we have Marvel characters. This is what really kind of got the ball rolling. After this, we would have Marvel vs. Capcom 2, all the way up to the much maligned Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. But it's very similar to X-Men vs. Street Fighter, just introduces Marvel characters. So I definitely spent less time with this than even X-Men vs. Street Fighter. But it again, it's a very cool game. Hey, what can I say? Oh, oh boy. Up next, Street Fighter, the movie, the game. In 1994, Capcom and Universal released Street Fighter, the movie, on Claude Van Damme, as you can proudly see here on the flyer for the arcade version of the game. The game was actually not developed by Capcom. It was developed by a company called Incredible Technologies, based in Chicago, who are most famous for the Golden Tee games. You ever go to a bar and you see Golden Tee, the golf arcade game? That the same company made this game. When you see the game in motion, to me, I think it looks fucking cool. Like, it has the digitized actors, it has the scenes, the backgrounds from the movie. Um, it looks cool, but it plays like garbage, which is unfortunate. I believe I've talked about this before. I do think it did introduce EX moves. Like it was the first game to have EX moves in Street Fighter, so that counts for something. But it's pretty bad. It's gonna have to go right there. It's gonna have to go home and be a family game. It even has Guile right on the front. After that, we do have Street Fighter the movie, the game 2. Real quick sidebar. You have a video game. You have Street Fighter. You make a movie about the game. It's Street Fighter. It's just called Street Fighter, but everybody calls it Street Fighter the movie. So what do you do after that? You make a game based off of the movie. So the game is the movie, the game. It's weird. Anyway, we had the Sega Saturn version of Street Fighter, the movie. In Japan, this game was called Street Fighter Real Battle on Film, which might be the coolest name for any Street Fighter game. It uses digitized graphics just like the original arcade version, but this version was actually developed by Capcom in-house and actually runs on the Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo engine. It plays just like Street Fighter 2, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, just with different graphics. That's wild. With that being said, Street Fighter, the movie, Real Battle on Film, it should be up here, right? Right next to its brother, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. They're the same game. Can it beat Shenlong? I don't think so. I'm going to put it down into the. Are you going to have to fight with me? I personally get a hoot out of this game. Let's see. Next, Street Fighter Alpha 2. So this is kind of a weird thing that was going on with Capcom games for a while. You have Street Fighter Alpha, and then you have Street Fighter Alpha 2. Well, Street Fighter Alpha 2, like this is gonna sound weird. Street Fighter 2 Alpha 2 replaces Street Fighter Alpha, which you're like, yeah, duh. Like it's Street Fighter, it's number 2. Of course, it replaced the first game. But what I mean is that like canonically, it replaces the first game. It tells the same story. If you're into that kind of thing, which I am because I'm a nerd. But it literally like Alpha 2 came out and was like it deletes Street Fighter Alpha 1. Is that not crazy? Like it's like you rebooted it immediately. Unfortunately, I'm just now realizing Street Fighter Alpha 2 Gold is not on this list. I wish I'd have seen that and realized it. Because that's the best version of Street Fighter Alpha 2. But it's kind of right there. Like I don't hate the Alpha games. I just never played them that much. And that's all I can really say about them. Like, I know about them. They do some cool stuff. Like, the new super combo system is cool. It gave us you know, young Chun-Li with the vest and like the unitard kind of thing going on. Introduces a new character that it gave us Rose, gave us Karin, gave us Sakura. But for me personally, it just doesn't play him a whole lot. So that's all I can really say about him. So next we have Street Fighter EX, the first 3D polygon Street Fighter game, which was not even developed by Capcom. For anyone who doesn't know, Street Fighter EX was a 3D fighting game. It's like 2.5D. Like you can't walk, you can't 8-way run or anything like that. The game was developed by a company called Orica, which was founded by a couple of former Capcom employees. Both were named Akira Nishitani and Akira Yasuda, who co-created Street Fighter 2. But then they left and formed this company. Very, very funny that they would leave and then kind of get Street Fighter back, but not really. The Orica company would go on to do some other games. Like they actually worked on the Tetris series for a while. They worked on one Mega Man game that I can think of for the GameCube. They actually did some of the later Dr. Mario games as well, which is kind of wild to think about. They also have supported Namco with Tekken. They help them out with it. I don't know what they do exactly, but that's what they do. They help them out. They also made Tetris 99, Super Mario Bros. 35, and Pac-Man 99 for Nintendo. So they got their hands in everything. They actually do have their own standalone fighting game out now called Fighting EX Lair. I've never played it. I keep meaning to. I just never get around to it. But it actually features a lot of the original characters that they created for Street Fighter EX. Because half of the roster is Capcom characters and the other half is Orica characters that they own and created for the game. So we'll get to the EX series a little bit later on, but like with EX1, EX, is that EX2? Because there was EX and EX Plus, and then EX Plus Alpha, which came out, which was the PlayStation version. Oh no, there's EX2 right there. So that's EX Plus. So EX2, you also go down here. I've seen him in person, seen the cabinets, never once played him. I did play EX3 though, so we'll get to that. Street Fighter 3, new generation. So this was a new generation of Street Fighter, as the name suggests. Ran on the CPS3 system, which gave it some kick-ass graphics. Like, the game is still, to me, a looker. Introduced a new roster. It does have Ken and Ryu in it. Other than that, everyone else is new. Introduces some characters that are kind of like classics now. Introduced Alex, Dudley, Ibuki, among many others. I actually played Generation on the channel a while ago, but that was really one of the first times I played it. Just didn't really get into New Generation. It doesn't help that it was exclusive to arcades and Dreamcast, which I did not have a Dreamcast growing up. So that being said, didn't spend a whole lot of time with it, so I don't have a lot of personal relationship with it. I'm afraid I gotta put it down here. There are many games like it all over the world. Now, here we go with some more bullshittery. This is Street Fighter 3 Second Impact Giant Attack. Rolls right off the tongue. Introduces Hugo and Urien as new characters, but it pulls a Street Fighter Alpha 2 in that it deletes new generation from the timeline. It supplants it. It tells the same story, but adds a little bit. Same kind of thing. Didn't spend a lot of time with it. I got to put it down here. Not a slight to it, just for me personally. Didn't spend time with it. Street Fighter X2 Plus, you're going down here, buddy. I didn't play it. Sorry. Now, Street Fighter Alpha 3, arguably the best Alpha game. It's actually had a couple revisions that aren't on this list. I thought about adding them, but I didn't. I didn't because, well, I added one of them. Alpha 3 Upper and Alpha 3 Max. Alpha 3 Max is known to be the definitive version of Alpha 3. It was exclusive to the PSP. I never played it. But we have the original Alpha 3 here. And I'm going to put it right there. It's man enough to fight with me. This is definitely the the Alpha game that I spent the most time with. Now, that being said, as you can see right here, we have another Street Fighter Alpha 3. This is Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper, which was released on the Game Boy Advance. And added some new characters, and kept a lot of the stuff that was great about the original PlayStation release. Graphics a little bit worse because it's Game Boy Advance. I mean, it's not gonna be great, but I played the dog shit out of this game on my Game Boy Advance SP. I was working at a go-kart park at the time, and I would often get stuck working the laser tag, which was a thankless job where you were often forgot about and would work your entire shift without a lunch or break. Because I had an SP and it had a backlight, this game helped me keep my sanity while I was working up there. And I've always loved this game. It's not the best it's not the best way to experience Street Fighter Alpha 3. I'll give it that, even though it does have more content. But for me, it goes up here. It can defeat Shenlong. Love this game. Again, I know it's not the best way to consume the game, but it got me through some tough times. Now, here we go. Street Fighter 3 Third Strike Fight for the Future. This was the last version of Street Fighter 3. It's a sequel to Street Fighter 3 Second Impact. It continues the story. It introduced a spattering of new characters, including bringing back Chun-Li, who had not been in the last two versions. First two versions, I guess I should say. This is borderline GOAT. It definitely can take on Shenlong. Now I love Street Fighter 3, but we're gonna get into it here in a little bit. We're gonna get more into it. Street Fighter EX3 on PlayStation 2. I believe it was an exclusive. I don't think it had a arcade release. This was one of the first games I bought on PlayStation 2 once I got it, and was kind of, for the first time in my life, was like accumulating money. And I got a PlayStation 2 for Christmas in 2002. I got NASCAR Thunder 2002 with it. And I think that was it. Oh no, I got the Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec version, so it came with Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec packaged in. This was not the first game I bought with my own money, but it is one of the first games. That being said, not a big fan of it. It's like, maybe if I played it now, I would have more respect for it. Because looking at like other people's opinions on the EX series, it's like a lot of people did bash the series because of its like weird, because it was 3D, and because of like the weird Arika characters. I was kind of like that with this. I was like, who the fuck are these people? But I will say one thing: it does have the best, in my opinion, the best Chun-Li theme in the entire series. Like, that theme song gets me so hyped when I hear it. It absolutely slaps. And that alone puts it up here. Like, dead serious. Like, dead ass. Just because of Chun-Li's theme song in that game, it's man enough to fight with me. Now, here, we're going to get a little bit into the weeds. We have Street Fighter Anniversary Collection and Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting. These are almost the same game. You can see they have the same cover. um, in Japan, this game was released standalone. Hyper Street Fighter 2, the Anniversary Edition. This was an amalgam of all the Street Fighter 2 games. You had the entire roster, but then once you're picking your character, you could pick your turbo speed and which version of that character you wanted. So if you wanted Champion Edition Guile to fight against Hyper Street Fighter 2 Chun-Li, you could do it. For me, not being like a mega expert on Street Fighter 2, back then or now, can't tell you. Like, I know, like, there are people out there that are like, oh my god, like you got to pick this version of that character, and because they have this and that and Turbo 2. I didn't play it. It was a Japan exclusive. However, we did get it in Street Fighter Anniversary Collection right here, which I added this to the list along with Alpha 3. Now, the reason I added that is because it has Street Fighter 3 Third Strike on it as well. We here in America, we didn't get a standalone release of Third Strike on PS2. This is the only way we could get it. And you can bet your ass, I played the shit out of this game. This is how I introduced one of my other friends to Street Fighter, and he's kind of, been on and off of it, for a while, but this was his first exposure to it. This is how I introduced it to him. And I remember staying up late at night with my PS2, studying, playing the crap out of Street Fighter 3. And this is how I did it. This is how I was exposed to the game. Like, consistently. I have seen, and I have played Street Fighter 3 Third Strike cabinet before. But this was my main consumption. And with that being said, now, I didn't really touch Hyper Fighter or Hyper Street Fighter 2 because, hey, it's not Street Fighter 3. This one goes up here, man. Strongest. It's one of the strongest games in the world. Is it mainly for Street Fighter 3? Yes. But that explains to you why now the original version of Street Fighter 3 is here. Because we have this version of Street Fighter 3 to go here. And Turbo or Hyper Fighting is going to go at the end of the list here because we're not going to rank it because we didn't play it. We technically did play it through this, but we're kind of getting into semantics, I guess. Up next, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo Revival. This was Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the Game Boy Advance. Much like Alpha 3. Now, I have a soft spot for this game because, like Alpha 3, I played so much of this game. In that same laser tag, dealing with the same bratty kids. This also helped me with my sanity. For that reason, it's going up here. We're actually going to put it right next to Alpha. We're going to slide Street Fighter 3 Third Strike right there. Love this game. Is it the best way to play Street Fighter 2? No. But I love the game because I just spent so much time with it. Super Street Fighter 2 HD Remix. Holy crap. This was a PS360 game that was and Super Street Fighter 2 again. Street Fighter 2 Turbo again. And it has new graphics that are drawn by Udon artists. Udon, of course, is like they're not owned by Capcom as far as I know, but they work very closely with Capcom in their comic books, art books, anything like that. Udon works on it with them. They've also done Darkstalkers, Mega Man. Name a Capcom property, Udon has probably done something with it in print form. That being said, I really don't like this game. Unfortunately, whenever I see it in action, it looks like a Flash game. Like maybe it does run on Flash. I don't know, but like when I see it in action, I'm like, that. I know it's Street Fighter 2, but it doesn't look like Street Fighter 2. I know it's supposed to look better, but not not really a fan, which is unfortunate. This might seem weird to some people, but it goes down here. Go home, be a family game. Street Fighter 4. There, can you believe this shit? One, two, three, four, five versions of Street Fighter 4. People think Street Fighter 2 is bad. Street Fighter 4 has Street Fighter 2 covered. Um, I have not played two of these. I played the vanilla Street Fighter 4. I remember when they announced this, I was super hyped. Um, it was the first brand new Street Fighter game since Third Strike, and Third Strike came out in 1999. And this came out in some year. Let's take a look. 2013? 2008. Oh my gosh. Oh, whoa. So it was the first Street Fighter game in like 9 years. First new Street Fighter game in 9 years. I can't believe it. Game came out in 2008. The game came out 15 years ago. But I was super hyped for it. And when I first played it, I really liked it. But then there was a problem because a little while after that, Arc System Works came out with the first BlazBlue game. And that game, I want to look and see exactly when that game came out. So, Street Fighter 4 came out on July 18th, 2008. And the first of many BlazBlue games came out. Of course, it's like not going to tell me like straight off the bat. November 19th, 2008. So it came out a few months later. Up until November, I was playing Street Fighter 4, and I was liking it, and I was kind of like, you know what? I don't think this is as good as Street Fighter 3. Then BlazBlue dropped, and Street Fighter 4 died. Like, it was done. It's over. I'm not playing it again. I did eventually play it again, but um, the vanilla version though, I'm gonna put right there, right in the middle. Don't love it, don't hate it. After I finally got over the fact that it wasn't Street Fighter 3 too, and kind of accepted it as its own game, I did like it a little better. But that being said, now we have Super Street Fighter 4. It's very funny. The producer of Street Fighter 4, um, I can never remember his full name. People just call him Ono because that was his last name, O-N-O, Ono. Uh, Yoshinori Ono. There we go. He originally was like, when Street Fighter 4 dropped, he was like, hey, we're not going to make like 100 versions like we did Street Fighter 2. And I was like, okay, cool. And then not long after, it's like, here's Super Street Fighter 4, which added some new characters, mostly Dudley, which was good. But it was like, oh, that's cool, I guess. Good job. um, can't really. It's better than Street Fighter 4, but for me personally, it's kind of still whatever. Arcade Edition, didn't play it. 3D Edition, didn't play it. That was exclusively for the 3DS. Ultra Street Fighter 4. So I'm gonna. Oh, right there. It can fight Shenlong. Uh, being Ultra, it is the best version of Street Fighter 4, in my opinion. I think most people will agree that it is. Um, it's playable on modern consoles. I remember I actually pre-ordered the 30th anniversary collection from Amazon, and they just sent me a download code, and I got the game for free on PS4, which is, of course, means you can play it on PS5. So it is playable on modern day consoles, so that helps it out. But it is definitely the better version of Street Fighter 4. I'm still not like a huge fan of Street Fighter 4, but if I'm gonna play one, I'm gonna play Ultra. Now, here's another one that I added. Street Fighter 3 Third Strike Online Edition. So this was a port of the game for PS360, which let you fight online. But it also added challenges. It added a gallery mode. It added through DLC, unfortunately, the soundtracks of An Attack and New Generation as well. There we go. Couldn't get it out there. So you were able to actually customize all the music in the game. That being said, this is the best version of Third Strike. Once I got a PS, or I didn't get a PS3, I got a 360. And this game dropped. I bought it immediately. And it completely supplanted Anniversary Collection. Me and the same friends kept playing it, just changed systems. It goes up here. Strongest fighting game in the world. It's up there. Basically, what I said about this applies to this, just better. Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Unfortunately, this game is not that good. It's pretty bad. It should have been awesome. I love Tekken. I love Street Fighter. You put them together, hey, kind of weird because it's 2D and 3D, but had a lot of potential, but they riddled it with microtransactions that killed the game. It was literally pay to win. Right? No way. Yeah, we got to go down here. Go home, be a family game. I want to talk about more about it, but I just didn't play it that much. So, because it was kind of shitty. Street Fighter Cross Mega Man, I didn't even know existed until I opened this web browser. You're going back here, buddy. Street Fighter 5. Street Fighter 5 is the drizzling shits. I fucking hate this game. I bought it not long after. Well, I got a PS4. I didn't get a PS4 like at launch or anything, but the game was still pretty new when I first got it. The roster was crap. The gameplay sucks. And I think Street Fighter 4 looks better. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I think Street Fighter 4 looks better. Go home. Be a family game. Street Fighter 5 fucking sucks. Sorry. Arcade Edition. Never played it. Never seen it. Street Fighter 5 Champion Edition. I do still own this version of the game. And I will give it this. That includes all the DLC. Well, except for Season 5, because they added another season after they released the game, so you still had to pay if you want to get every single thing. The best thing about Street Fighter 5, collectively, that I can say, is that it gave Chun-Li a shit ton of costumes. And they were all, most of them were baller as hell. That's really all I can say about it. The only positive I can say, it's better than vanilla. I'll give it that. So I'll put it there. There are many games like it all over the world. Ultra Street Fighter 2, the final challengers. This is an updated version of Super Street Fighter 2 HD Remix. It has the same graphics. Um, and a really bad first-person Hadoken mode, which should have been awesome. Never played it. Don't have no desire to play it. If it plays like this, then I don't want it. So finally, that brings us to Street Fighter 6, the newest game in the franchise. The one that you can play right now. It's the newest game, just came out June of 2023, so just about 6 months ago. I mean, I guess you could probably tell because I play it all the time on this channel. I fucking love Street Fighter 6. It took everything that was bad about 5, made it good. Brought back some of the old mechanics, brings back some Street Fighter 3 mechanics, brings back some Street Fighter 4 mechanics. And to me, it plays like a dream. I love playing it. And, you know, that being said, I mean, that's borderline like my game of the year for 2023. Like, it's between that and like a couple others. But I'm like, I think Street Fighter 6 is it. And with that being said, we basically, up here, strongest fighting game in the world. We have Street Fighter 3 twice. Is there anything better than that? Street Fighter 6 goes up there. Strongest fighting game in the world. That's 1A and 1B for me. Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, Street Fighter 6. I'm so glad I can say that because Street Fighter 4 was good. Like, Street Fighter 4 was like okay when it came out. It got better as it went, up to Ultra Street Fighter 4. But then like Street Fighter 5 came out, and it made Street Fighter 4 look like God. It was like, whoa, we had it good. Street Fighter 4 compared to Street Fighter 5. So, with Street Fighter 5 being so bad, I remember like when Street Fighter 6 was announced, I was like, whatever. Like, it's gonna suck. Like, it's gonna be bad. Street Fighter 5 showed it was Street Fighter's dead. 6 drops. Completely overhauls the gameplay. Gives us a nice roster of new characters, a mix of old characters and new characters. Old ones that we've always loved, new ones that we can get to know. And I absolutely love it. I love the game. So, like I said, I'm so glad I can say that because 4 was kind of a disappointment for me, and then 5 was just extreme, dead on arrival. Like, it's so bad. And Street Fighter 5's roster is so good, and like, it sucks that like the game itself is just not fun to play. To me, it's just not fun to play. Street Fighter 6, it's like it's the complete opposite. It's so fun to play. It has a good roster. It's gonna get better. Obviously, there's probably gonna be at least 4 or 5 seasons of DLC characters. I'm excited to see who they add. There's some from Street Fighter 5 that, or like, you know, the older games, like the alpha games, that I would love to see added. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah, for me, I know it's kind of arbitrary to put these two in this tier because they're basically the same game. But for me, on a personal level, this was always going to be up here. And I had to add this, actually. That wasn't part of the original like lineup. Which I'm like, why? But I guess like some other, like the compilation games aren't really on here, like 30th Anniversary Collection, Alpha Anthology, they're not on here. But we're going for like the individual games, I guess. Yeah, so I kind of cheated by putting that on there. But even if it wasn't on here, this is. So there you have it. There is the tier list. I'm pretty happy with that, I think. This was off the cuff. Like, I didn't. You could probably tell by the way I talk. It's not scripted. But yeah. I think that's it. I think that's what we're gonna go with. Uh, Tell me how much you hate me in the comments below.